mics?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Selectmen regular meeting, June 14th, 2023. It is now 5 o'clock, and I have to take a motion to amend the agenda. We have an attorney, Peter Nolan, who is listed under executive session number 17, who has another commitment he has to be at, so I will make a motion that we go into executive session pursuant to 1-200-6B, update from the attorneys regarding pending litigation, Open Communities Trust LLC et al. Versus Town Plan and Zoning Commission of Woodbridge Town of Woodbridge et al. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
We're adding in.
A second,
Oh, I'm
please.
gonna bring, sorry, I'm
Jim
gonna,
seconded.
right, and I have to add in Tony Genovese, our Finance Director, Administrative Officer, and obviously Attorney Nolan, and Town Council Jerry Weiner. Was a second, right? Sheila did that? Okay, thank you.
Joe did it.
Yeah.
Any comments,
And
discussions?
that is to amend the agenda and go into executive.
Correct,
Yeah.
sorry. Trying to talk fast here. Jerry told me to go tonight. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
David? Yep, thanks, sorry. It's unanimous, thanks. Now we throw everybody out of the room. Thank you, everyone. We're now out of executive session. I could let you know that there were no motions made nor votes taken during that executive session. Now we'll go back to the agenda. The first item is the first selectman's remarks, and I will begin. Welcome to the June 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen again. It's such a pleasure to open the meeting tonight with exciting news. After many years, the Woodbridge Center will hold its long-awaited grand opening on Wednesday, June 21st at 4 o'clock with a ribbon cutting ceremony at 4:30. As you'll remember, the center received a Small Town Economic Assistance Program grant, or STEEP grant, as well as bond commission funds and federal opera funds. We're very grateful for all the work that has gone into making this a beautiful, modern, and welcoming center for our residents 55 and older. Anybody can really go there. You have invitations in your packet, and don't forget to RSVP for this highly anticipated and noteworthy event. On another exciting front, the Ad Hoc Sustainability Task Force has met, set its membership, and completed the following charge. The Sustainability Ad Hoc Committee is advisory to the Board of Selectmen, charged with guiding town boards, commissions, and departments to further advance the principles of sustainability, equity, and environmental stewardship within and beyond our community, while fostering community support and with development of a sustainability plan and management of initiatives to achieve long-term sustainability goals for the community, with the goal of becoming a full standing commission by ordinance. In addition to the folks that were appointed last month, the membership will also include Barbara Jean Ahern, Alyssa Anderson, Lena Marcuccio, Diana McCarthy-Berkery. With renewed interest in certification, we have potential for both state and federal grant dollars to come to Woodbridge, as well as community matching funds. Thank you to all the new members, and special thanks to co-chairs Hillary Drum and Tom Kennefick for their leadership in this wonderful renewed endeavor. Many thanks to Selectman Kuriakose for attending the 8th grade promotion ceremony at the Amity Middle School for me. I attended the lovely 33rd Annual Volunteer Appreciation event in late May and assisted with presenting awards and citations to an impressive array of Woodbridge volunteers. These volunteers helped with events and programs for senior services, youth services, and social services. I was also privileged to present this first Selectmen's Youth Award to Amity Jr., Jack Morrison. I also attended the annual Woodbridge Memorial Day ceremony on Monday, May 29th. And this event was beautifully hosted by Dr. Barry Josephs, and it was a wonderful tribute to servicemen and women who died in the line of duty. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the withdrawal of the last U.S. troops from Vietnam. Woodbridge will be holding an event to honor our residents who served in the military during the Vietnam era, and the ceremony is scheduled for July 17th, 2023 at 5 o'clock at the Woodbridge Center. It will be co-hosted by Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysowitz and the town. Woodbridge residents, including David Lober, who are Vietnam veterans, will be receiving invitations this week. This past month seemed to be filled with events for children. On May 26th, approximately 100 Beecher Road School third graders, along with their teachers, Amy Meacham, John Hutchinson, Visnanav, Nina Triplett, and Mary Vincentorio, came to our town hall to learn about the structure and function of local government as part of their social studies curriculum. They heard from staff from the tax collector's office, assessor's office, and our town clerks. I also spoke with them about what we do at town hall. Then they visited the police department, library, and the firehouse. Additionally, I spoke at the Woodbridge Child Care Center graduation. What an adorable event with 12 4-year-olds in caps and gowns. They're so cute. Now on to kindergarten for those little ones. I also addressed the Beecher Road School 6th grade graduates this morning at their lovely ceremony at the school. Thank you again. That was really beautiful. Every once in a while, I get to do something as a point of personal privilege, which I really enjoy. First, I will present a Woodbridge citation on behalf of the residents of the town of Woodbridge and the Board of Selectmen to the inaugural Ms. President U.S. Woodbridge winner. Ms. President U.S. is a girls' civic leadership program which strives to motivate girls to serve in local leadership positions. There are currently 11 Connecticut towns participating within this nonprofit organization. If Nita Sudhir would stand pleased to come up and be recognized and join me to receive this citation. Nita is a 5th grade student at Beecher Road School whose campaign platform highlighted discouraging litter. Sorry. Boy, it's time. To quote the press release, quote, Nita Sudhir bravely ran independently. She was excited to develop leadership skills and help her town, unquote. And we are all so very proud of her. And I have to read, I'd like you to come up and I'm going to give you a citation, which I will read. Hi. I know you're down. Hi guys in the back, her family's all here. The Town of Woodbridge, Office of the First Selectman, official citation. Be it hereby known to all that the First Selectman offers her sincerest congratulations to Nita Sudhir, elected the 2023 Miss President U.S. Woodbridge, and wishes her every success as she moves forward developing leadership skills as she focuses on her platform to discouraging littering, I said it correctly, in the beautiful town of Woodbridge, given this 14th day of June 2023. So I have this for you. Congratulations. We'll do a photo and then Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our family's in the background. Great job, you guys. Thank you. I'm glad Superintendent Enzo was here for you. Yeah, great. Thank you for coming. Secondly, I would ask if Pooh Ford might come forward from behind the camera. She doesn't know about this. Pooh has been the coordinator of the Woodbridge Government Access TV since November 2003. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Additionally, she served as the Bethany Registrar of Voters and the VP of Communications for the League of Women Voters of Connecticut. Pua, you have kept us accessible and transparent, and all of Woodbridge the same way, and we will miss you very, very much. She's, I believe, retiring this month. I have a citation for you to thank you for everything you've done for us. Oh, shucks, I know. The Town of Woodbridge, Office of the First Selectman, official citation, be it hereby known to all that the First Selectman offers her sincerest congratulations to Pua Ford for her many years of dedication to the development and growth. You were in at the beginning, right? Telemedia service for the Woodbridge Boards of Commissions, assuring open government for our town, and I wish you a long and successful retirement.
Get out of here, it's a success.
You want another picture? Yeah, okay. Whoops. Thanks. So they give this to you. And that's the last of all of the fun tonight from me. And hopefully you'll, don't forget to RSVP for the grand opening next week. Item 2 on the agenda we just did. Item 3 is the Woodbridge Board of Education. I'll call up Superintendent Rhonda Tenza.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My cheeks are so tired. It's been such a happy day, the last day of school. All we've done is smile, and I can't
Turn
stop.
into tomatoes.
It's
It was so hot out there.
hard. It was so happy.
But it was fun.
So today was the last day of school. We began the school with 845 students. We ended with 866, consistent with last month. So we grew 21 students net overall, and we had so many end of the year festivities. We did graduate about 125 sixth graders today, sending them up to Amity. But I just want to point out how nice it was to see. We set out 500 chairs, and we had people standing. There were so many people that came, and it's not to be taken for granted. We know over the past few years that hasn't been able to happen. So we did hold it outside in the upper field, and there were many, many family members and extended family members and friends and student alumni that were there. It was just such a feeling of energy. In addition to that, though, we were able to have our DARE graduation, which we haven't had. We've had MAG celebrations and little kindergarten step-up ceremonies and writing fairs and science fairs and tag celebrations. And for me, it's wonderful to meet the families, but for the families, it's wonderful to get a chance to see what their kids are doing, and it's just a joy. So, our town building committee for Beecher Road capital projects, we did, as you know, issue an RFQ, or request for qualifications, for architectural and engineering services for our roof replacement, our drainage issues, our site improvements for Beecher Road School. So our responses were due by that first weekend in June, and we received 4 proposals. Last week we interviewed 3 of those 4 firms on June 9th, 3 responded, and on June 12th, the committee met and recommended awarding Silver Petroselli the contract, which totaled a little under $200,000. It was about $195 and change. To begin this project, the town must fund about $104,000, and the remainder would be funded through a referendum if the vote was successful. So I will be recommending to our Board of Education at next week's meeting on Tuesday that we fund that initial portion of the contract with surplus funds that we have in this year's current budget. So that will be my recommendation. We also have an ad hoc enrollment instructional needs and planning committee, and that's a separate committee that's been very busy, meeting a few times a month. And we are at the point now where we feel like we are ready to summarize our learnings and recommendations to the Board of Education. And so we will be sharing some of that information with our Board of Education next week in terms of our learning and potential next steps. And, we met this afternoon, the co-chair, Maria Madonic, and Lynn and I, and started preparing a little bit of a road show to come and bring to all of you as well. But we'll start with our Board of Education. We also celebrated our Teacher of the Year for next year. We picked Lisa Rosner as our 23-24 Teacher of the Year. Lisa was hired as a teacher's assistant in 2008, and she became a special education teacher in 2013. And over that time period, she's worked with a variety of children with special needs in a variety of grade levels. And she's been referenced as flexible and friendly and supportive, which are critical qualities for any educator. She's highly respected by administrators and colleagues and parents and students, and we're very proud that she's going to represent our Beecher Road community next year with the honor of Teacher of the Year. And I just want to end by saying that we had very proud teachers and administrators this morning sending off our students. It was a delight to listen to our Board of Ed chairperson, Lynn Piazzik, and a special, honor to listen to our first Selectwoman, Beth Heller, offer their thoughtful remarks. She quoted one of my favorite quotes from Winnie the Pooh, and I just wanted to recognize to the community present that would be Beth's last 6th grade speech, and it was very special. So, thank you for being there.
Thank you. I hope you will stick around
Yes.
for our next item,
Yes, I'm going.
because,
Yep.
but thank you. Anyone have any questions, by the way, for Vonda?
Yeah. Yes, we're hiring Silver Petroselli to do what exactly? What's their scope of their work? Are they just doing engineering?
This is the initial, I guess you'd call it an architectural study.
Okay.
Yep, so they'll be doing, exactly that, architectural engineering. They'll be helping with the site work for, drainage and, tree removal and a whole bunch of other items.
Okay. And I have one other question. So we have 21 more students than we started with. How did that?
Net, yes, so
how
some
did
have
that-
left.
How did that affect your budget for this year?
So I wouldn't say that there was a net, like it wasn't one classroom teacher that we needed to add, because they've, as you've seen, they've sprinkled throughout the grade levels. They've sprinkled throughout a variety of needs and interests. Overall, I wouldn't say that there was a direct impact on our budget by 21 extra students. What we are, noticing is that as our class sizes get closer, it does make us start to watch very closely how we're using our resources. One example I can give you is that our current kindergarten numbers are very close to a tipping point for an additional section. I believe 4 or 5. If we receive 4 or 5 more, we're over our kind of our recommended size, and we'd need to add another section. I've already shared with administration that we would find that teacher from within our current staff, but we would need to probably bump somebody out of a space to use that space as a classroom. So perhaps another special would be on a cart in order to use that room.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. That is a good segue into item number 4, which is the Beach Middle School roof RFP, and action is appropriate. I'll call on the chair of that committee to, Vonda kind of gave a little
Yes.
snapshot, so.
Oh, that's fine, because then we can be very efficient with this. So
Right.
as you heard, the details of the process by which the committee interviewed and then selected for a recommendation for the Board of Selectmen. So I think what I'll do, I know Tony Genovese has provided a memo with all the details of the ins and outs of this, including a description of what it is we're contracting for, but I guess I would start by putting out a motion that the Board of Selectmen enter into contract with S&P for architectural services as outlined in the memo from Tony.
Without the funding source identified yet, correct? Or,
Well,
because we
I
have
guess
to
we
wait.
turn to Tony to find out if we could enter into contract with the funding source still pending, or whether we need
They
to.
have to take it, Vonda has to take it to the board, correct? No?
So yeah, so
Right.
I would say pending a successful funding source.
Okay,
Why don't we do it that way?
If,
Perfect.
so if for some reason, we need to revisit that, then we would have to do that.
Right.
But
So
it
it-
happens at your meeting.
Right, so as long as it is followed through on, we've done our share
Right.
of the motion.
Right.
So that would be my motion, that
Okay.
pending funding
I will second
identification.
that.
Great.
Anybody have any questions about this point? I will say thank you very much. Yes, we are, but thank you, it helps a lot.
The work
We
is
work-
shifting over to the
Working
school now.
collaboratively, it's very helpful, so thank you so much. Thank the board in advance, maybe?
Yes.
Okay, yep. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Excuse
thank
me,
you.
I didn't get who made the motion or who.
I made the
Sheila
motion.
and me, yeah.
Terrific. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. Okay, we can keep going related to public hearing, which has to be at 6, and public comments as well, so why don't we move on to item 7, which is the Massaro Farm. You have in your packet an application from Massaro Farm to apply for Connecticut EV Charging Rebate Program application, and I believe before they do that, because it's town property, it has to go for an 824. So I'll make a motion that we send this to the Town Planning and Zoning, refer to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission for an 824 review of the proposed installation. Is there a second?
A second?
Thank you. Anybody have any questions about this? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This will be a good thing. Okay. Item 8 is a quick one. We received an 824 response back from Town Plan and Zoning to this board, to the Board of Selectmen, saying that it was a unanimous vote of the commission to approve the referral for the proposed community and cultural center shown on the plans prepared by Aris Land Studio. And there's a memo from Chairman of the Commission, Robert Lee. We just have to accept this, Jerry, correct? That we acknowledge we've received it, so that'll go to the committee. And boy, we are flying along, okay? Item 9 is the Administrative Officer Director of Finance reports. I'll call on Tony to begin. Sorry,
Thank you.
welcome.
So the year-end report through May is an estimated surplus of just over $1 million. The town has an allocation of fund balance of $400,000, so that would be a slightly under $700,000 increase to our fund balance. As part of this, we did increase our allocation from fund balance in next year's budget to $800,000 in acknowledgement of the surplus at Amity. So even though there's a larger surplus this year, we did increase our surplus, our allocation to fund balance next year because of that surplus at the school. So just wanted to make that point. Our interest income is generating a surplus that projected at $415,000. The rate was currently or a good portion of our saving earnings were at a little over 5%. I know the rate was the interest rate was not increased today, so I'm not sure where we are in terms of the federal funds rate, but we are somewhat sensitive to that in our earnings. So that's where we have a good portion of our surplus. In intergovernmental revenue, we do have a surplus of $170,000, and a change from this month is part of the 23 budget process for fiscal year 23, the one we're in. For those who are involved in the process, you may remember that we had, as part of that process, allocating directly to the Board of Education for excess cost, special education excess cost grant funds of $170,000. So I was not including that in my projections for prior months. But historically, the town has always received those funds, and because the Board of Ed has a surplus this year, they are not going to be requesting those funds, so that adds to our surplus. So they had anticipated at the time of creating their budget that they were going to need those funds to balance their budget. But as the superintendent indicated, that's not necessary, and they still have a surplus in addition to not using these funds. So that's why another reason why our surplus went up this month.
Tony,
That's 170,000. Yes.
Can I just ask you a question? So I think I understand it. So we would not be departing from past practice. We're actually going to
Correct.
default back to
Correct.
past
We're going to
practice.
stay
We
at
never
past
did
practice.
depart. Okay.
Right. It was
Just following
planned.
what you said there.
We were planning to depart from past practice reluctantly, but because that particular budget year was such a difficult budget year, if you recall, but it didn't turn out that way, and so there was not a need to depart from past practice. The town will continue to keep the special education excess cost grant funds, and then the future years, if the board has a need, they'll make sure they let us know, and that's how we've always done it. So
Great.
that seems to work out. On our expenditures, we have a surplus in the building officials line, $12,000. Waste management, I'm continuing to monitor that. We probably have a deficit there of about $25,000. I'm going to continue to monitor that and see how that turns out. A lot of that was relating to recycling and the cost of recycling, which is a little over $90 a ton, and that's probably $30 a ton more than our solid waste fee. So it actually costs us about 50% more to recycle than it does to just dispose of waste. So you probably heard a little bit about that in the news. Human Services has a surplus, projected surplus of about $20,000. We have some savings in part-time wages. This is would be after the request in this month's budget. So if you do not vote for that request, this goes up to, 36 or whatever.
Oh, for the room divider.
Correct, for the
right?
room divider,
Yeah,
right.
okay, gotcha.
The Amity surplus we've discussed in the past, that surplus stays at $363,000. And finally, the Woodbridge Board of Education, this was their surplus through April of 2023, that was $125,000. That possibly could be reduced based on what you heard this evening. So that could lower the amount that we may wind up with a surplus at the end of the year. Those are the highlights for
Anybody have any questions
this
for
particular
Tony?
fiscal year.
When our March payment was reduced, we also, though, didn't we recognize a diminished amount of revenue on the revenue side? Because normally in our budget, we project that the rebate from Amity as a revenue, correct?
Correct. So that's correct. So in the budget for next year, we eliminated that revenue item, correct? And we will just recognize it as a reduced expenditure if that happens again. But to make up for that lost revenue, we did increase the fund balance to sort of offset it.
Right.
Yeah.
And this year, we're just seeing, in spite of the fact that we have that less revenue, we're still showing these obviously surpluses.
Right. Right.
Good job, Tony.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Tony.
Okay.
Item B is funding requests. The first one on the file is line item transfer number 2023-32, is that correct?
Correct.
Of the amount of $2,300. I believe this is from the police department, correct? And
Correct.
they're finding this money in their medical expense. It's to cover a professional transcription of legal recordings for a court case and trial. So I will move acceptance of line item transfer 2023-32 in the amount of $2,300. Is there a second?
Second.
Anyone have any comments or questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you. Next one is line item transfer. We like these line item transfers because it means
Right.
we're not spending contingency. It's people finding money in their budget. 2223-33 in the amount of $12,840. Do you want to explain this one?
Sure.
'Cause
So we had a
I don't
premature
understand.
failure of our S2 net box. Our S2 system is the security system that controls all the keys, electronic keys, to all of our doors at the firehouse, the old firehouse, the town hall, the center building, the library, and public works. So while the system defaults to lock in case of a failure, so it's not like all the doors were open, we have no access to create keys, to modify accounts, to control doors. So that's what this is for. We sort of had to do this, and we sort of were processing this as we go here, so
Right.
because we were without
Exactly,
a locking system.
frightening, but it was fixed.
Yeah.
Or will be. Anyway, so Tony very wonderfully found money in different places, and so I will move acceptance of line item transfer 2223-33 in the amount of $12,840. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other questions for Tony on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Got more, right? Okay. This is a funding request. Oh,
Mhm.
but I know what this is for, and
Right.
boy,
This was a planned one.
yep, we knew this was coming, and I'm very happy about it. This is for funding request number 2223-34 in the amount of $50,000 to replace the building maintenance van with a pickup truck. I think this is Brad's truck. Is that the one?
Brad's, yeah.
Yep,
The
which
van
has
that we
holes
use.
in it. We also have pictures of it at the budget presentation. It has over 150, the current van has over 151,000 miles. And to say it has a lot of body rot is being kind.
Right.
So, anyway, he's going to get a pickup truck to replace this as a memo from Tony to us.
The Board of
And-
Finance eliminated it from the capital budget
Right,
with the intent of using the remainder of the contingency to fund it,
because we had a really good
to
winter.
offset to reduce the budget.
Right. So I will move acceptance of funding request number 2223-34 in the amount of $50,000. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. Anybody have any other comments or questions? I'm
What
still
kind of
gonna
truck are we
get
getting?
this. What?
What kind of truck are we getting?
It'll be a, he told me we usually get them off state contract, so it's probably gonna be a Ford or probably a Ford, usually that's what's on state contract, 350, I think.
Do you know what year the maintenance van is that we're replacing?
I'm gonna say,
1995, no, I'm joking.
No.
It's so
It looks like
bad.
it's
Remember
from
those
the 70s.
pictures?
it's,
I
do you
thought it was a
remember, Karen?
pipe.
No, I'm sorry, I
I don't have
It's
it off the top of
old.
my head.
It's not important.
Yeah.
It's old.
It's gotta go, and it can't be used by anybody else. Hopefully it'll be tuna fish cans or something.
Driving up the cliff.
Yep,
You could see
Yeah.
if you look at, you could see through the
yeah. It's so
floor.
bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I worry about him every day,
Level.
driving that other one.
Right.
So hopefully I'll get this quick. Okay, we have a motion and a second, right, Jerry?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Have to go out and get it tomorrow. Makes me crazy. Now we have another line item transfer, 2223-35, in the amount of $16,000. Jeanette was able to find money. She had this in her budget, and I believe it was removed for
It was.
next year.
It's a cost-cutting measure.
Yep, so she found the money for this room divider at the new center. It is 16,000 from, she took it from part-time all other. And I don't know too much about it, but that's
It's
exactly what
basically
it
a
is,
room divider, so you can divide the main, the main room down in the senior
Right.
center for two different events at the same time.
Right,
And,
so she also has a memo in here.
she had the surplus funds in her budget because she thought the project would be done, as we all did, would be done quicker than it was, and we would have had staff.
Right,
So
right,
because
so
we didn't
she-
have the staff,
For the kitchen
For the
or
kitchen,
something, right,
right.
yeah, okay. So I'll move acceptance of line item transfer number 2223-35 in the amount of $16,000. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. Any other comments or questions on this one? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, got everybody? Okay, great. What's next?
there's one for next year.
Okay. Is that the bid award? No?
No, there's a one for next year for recreation, because
see.
they have to pay
Yep,
the
I
Woodbridge
gotcha.
Club for.
I just found it, sorry. Line item transfer number 2324-01 in the amount of $12,700. The rec department is requesting a transfer to cover this amount, to cover the recreation summer campers. Oh, for transportation, because we got,
And then we have to pay the club,
right,
prepay the club
okay.
for the summer.
Got it, okay. So this is for fiscal year 2024, we can do that?
Well, so what'll happen is, if you authorize it now, then I have to pay them like the first week of the
Okay,
year, but you don't meet until the middle, and it's
July,
finance
got
meets
it.
at
So
the end
that
of the month,
makes
so
good
I wouldn't
sense.
be able to prepay it if you didn't.
okay, well, we can't have that, because we want those kids to go to the club and swim, so that's a good thing.
Right.
I will move acceptance on line item transfer number 2324-01 in the amount of $2,700. Is there a second? Thank you, David. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it, right?
That's it.
Now we go to bid award. Do you want to talk about this, or line
Line
painting?
painting.
Yep.
Sure.
You want me to?
No, I can't.
Good, because you're better at it.
We went out to bid for line painting services. We only do line painting once, I think, every 4 or 5 years now, because we use epoxy painting as opposed to just regular paint, so it's lasts a lot longer and it's cheaper to do once every 5 years than to keep repainting every year. So we went out to bid for that, and we received 4 bids, 2 of which were non-conforming because they didn't meet the specification. So there were 2 bids, Safety Marking and then Eyeline LLC. And Warren checked the references, and received unfavorable references for the low bidder. Had to do with, did you put it in his memo there?
Yep.
Yeah. And he received some others as well after this, so he's decided, recommended we go with Safety Marking, who we've used in the past.
Okay, so I'll make a recommendation that we award the bid to Safety Marking LLC upon the recommendation of Director of Public Works Connors. And he said that you've used this in the past, which is good, and performed successfully, so that's good. Is there a
Correct.
second? Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Great, thank you. And is that it for that part? And do you have another other?
There's
Oh, what else have I forgotten?
there's a state contract for the police hybrid vehicle.
Hybrid.
Oh,
Very
here it
good.
is, yep. Divided page, okay.
It's in the budget, this is just to authorize the police chief to use state contract to purchase the vehicle.
There's a quote for one new 2023 Ford Utility Police Uceptor AWD all-wheel drive hybrid SUV. The memo respectfully serves as an official request to forego the bid process and utilize MHQ, who holds the contract, state bid contract, correct? That's, okay. As we have over the past several years, or a dealership that can honor the state bid price. So I'll move that we approve the,
Bid waiver?
what do you need from us?
You just authorize the purchase of
Authorize
the
to
vehicle
use
off
the
state
state
bid.
bid contract, okay. As discussed in Chief Capiella's memo. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Any comments or questions on this? All in favor?
Hi.
Thank you. David, did you do that too? David Vogel? You, good, okay, thanks. All righty then. Now we're really at other, right?
I do have one other.
Oh,
Actually, believe it or not, at the last strategic plan meeting, there was a question as to whether we get pricing on putting our zoning regulations onto our online E-code program, if you recall. And so I did do that, and Jerry actually did a lot of the legwork on that. And so that would be $5,300 for the zoning regulations and the $1,500 for inland wetlands.
So Tony, this makes it easier for the public to be able to look at our zoning regulations and make sure they're all in one place and
To
searchable.
search, correct, search under.
It's a great leap in transparency for zoning regs.
good. So you need from us just
Well, no,
a
I just thought I'd
census.
mention it, if
Yeah.
there's an interest, I can pursue funding and et cetera, et cetera.
In my opinion, yes. I'm assuming there's consensus on the board to go forward with this, correct? Anybody have any
Probably oughta-
issues? Yep,
It was something in the strategic plan, so
yep.
it's
yep.
great.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
with that, have
Okay.
at it.
Okay,
Okay,
I will be back in,
great. Thank
Great.
you.
that's it.
Okay, we have about 5 more minutes. We can perhaps get the number 10 Assistant Administrative Officer's report in. Karen, I'll call on you.
Okay, thanks, Beth.
You're welcome.
Some of the projects we're working on is, we've scheduled fire extinguisher training for town employees. They have to do that every so often, so we've scheduled that for July. The safety committee meeting will be meeting in July, and the members are asked to bring any safety concerns to the members of this committee. I've worked with Tony. We created 3 cybersecurity policies, posted, and we posted them on the website. We're continuing to work with KnowBe4 for cybersecurity training for all employees. I prepared the line painting services bid for publication, and I'm currently working with the vendor on delivery and installation of the copiers from the recently awarded bid. And I continue to drill down further for pricing for town commodities. And so my recurring jobs I'm doing, I'm continue to support the budget. We're currently preparing for the online adopted budget. I'm approving content for the website submitted by departments. I'm assisting Tony with the personnel matters that come up. Attend weekly meetings with Empower, which is the new 457 plan that we're going to be implementing. We're getting further and further and closer to the implementation date in July. Continue to work and assist the payroll and benefits administrator, which was my former position, to ensure that the deadlines are being met. And I'm screening and follow up on all town IT help desk requests. And that's about it for now.
Okay, thank you. 5:56, what else can we get in here?
You can start with them as long as we don't.
We have to do the script for the public hearing.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
next thing, that's at 6, so.
How about,
You can do the public
Can we do the
comments.
public comments? Is
Yeah.
everybody okay with that? All right, we'll go to, jumping around here a little bit, we'll go to number 6, which is public comments. Anyone would like to come up and give public comments? 3 minutes, please. We have a long agenda tonight, thank you.
My name's Kathy Wick. I live at 181 Rimmon Road. And I'm here in reference to agenda item number 11, which is the discussion of an RFP for the master plan for the former Country Club of Woodbridge. And I guess first I have a question as to whether there will be an opportunity for the public to interact with the consultant and to have any input to inform the consultant of different areas of concern. There are many individuals and groups in town that have an interest in what the future of the property is, and so we would request that there be an opportunity for the public to have input with the consultant. There is something that I did want to make sure people were aware of as well. 2 weekends ago, the weekend of June 3rd and 4th, was the 30th anniversary of Connecticut Trails Day, and the Woodbridge Land Trust sponsored 2 walks that weekend. There were dozens of events all over the state. The first walk was at the Country Club property. It was co-sponsored with the Parks Association and with the Woodbridge Recreation Department. We had a very impressive large turnout of people who came, from toddlers to elders and quite a few dogs. And we had a wonderful walk guided by 2 experts. One was a bird expert and the other was a forester who works for the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. And we learned a lot about the importance of the property, its habitat, and what an unusual habitat it is. It's actually officially a shrubland habitat, which is vanishingly rare in Connecticut and in fact in the entire Northeast. This shrubland, most, as you probably are aware, most of our open space is densely wooded in Woodbridge and in the state at large. There are many wildlife species that don't thrive in a densely wooded habitat and that need this open shrubland. I did also want to mention, while this was not a migration time, it was a nesting time, early June, we still saw a remarkable number of birds. Our guide has been birding that property ever since it was no longer a golf course, and he said the species has increased dramatically every year. We saw a bald eagle, which was quite unusual for that spot. We saw red-tailed hawk, chimney swift, northern flicker, warbling vireo, barn swallow, house wren, cedar waxwing, Baltimore oriole. A rare sighting was an orchard oriole, which is quite rare in Connecticut. Red-winged blackbird, common yellowthroat, field sparrow, indigo bunting. That's just a partial list. Of course, we also saw blue jays and robins and all of those, but these were the more unusual list of the more unusual birds that we saw. Birding has experienced a huge increase since the pandemic began. One estimate I read was that it's increased by about 50% in the country. Millions and millions of people are interested in birding, and it's actually becoming, in the past it was much more of an older people hobby, but actually younger people are getting much more interested in it as well. The Country Club of Woodbridge is actually designated as a hotspot on eBird, which is the website that is run by the Cornell Ornithology Lab, which was the premier ornithology lab in the country. And so people from all over the country make note of the birds that they see in different places. And so I've heard from birders from 3 different local organizations about how wonderful the country club is as a place for birds, because there are very few shrubland habitats for birds. So I would like to be able to communicate some of this information to the consultant, and hope that we would have the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Amy Morella, 184 Women Road. I'd actually follow up on Kathy's in a couple of respects. First of all, I'd like to be specific to say that there's quite a lot of information and data collected by townspeople over the years, and that information specifically should be made available to any consultant that you hire, because we've done a lot of groundwork absent work by this town leadership. So that should be included. And also specifically, there is a concern that what will be handed over to them is the housing report, but not all of this other information would indicate other potential uses. And if that were to be done, that would show that there is steerage of the consultant for a particular outcome, which is contrary, I believe, to good government. So I hope that you will focus the RFP on all of the different ideas that have come over the many years that we've owned the country club, and you will offer instruction that the consultant provides an objective review of all the different ideas, not only housing, but the many others. Open space, there's been specific proposals, solar farm, any other of the ideas that have been had. I know, Sheila, you did early work on recreation opportunities at the site. It needs to first be done to answer the many ideas that people in town have had. And I would like to just add one more thing. Housing has been a focus of this administration for a while, but open space is often also a focus of the state. There is a goal that was set and has not been met by the state of achieving open space permanently, and in that regard, there's a letter that was dated from, I believe, 2016, but I can get it for you. It's in the town record, where I wrote to the then DEP commissioner, who happens to be our town plan and zoning commission chair now, and he made clear that it is not a matter of a percentage for each town. It is an overall percentage goal, and some towns, like Woodbridge, have to achieve more open space than the total state goal if we are going to achieve this statewide goal, because some other communities, such as New Haven, already are developed and will never achieve anything close to the state goal. So all of that should be information, and as Kathy said too, I think also once all that information is given to the consultant, the directive to be objective, that people do need input onto while the process is going on, and also there needs to be robust sharing and discussion of what the results are of the consultant's work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Paul Harrigan from Brook Road. I'd like to encourage you to direct the consultant that you hire to do the RFP, if that's what you eventually do, to have him look at various options and not just one or two, to look at the various options, and when he does look at the options, to do an analysis of each one with data that's pertinent to Woodbridge. In the prior development proposals, developers had used the wrong data for the cost per student. They used the wrong data for the number of students. They used national averages for the number of students in new households. When I surveyed real estate agents in town and found out the statistic was significantly higher than what the national average was. It was almost twice as much as the national average. I think that data needs to be reflected in any analysis or any recommendation that's done. Is the financial impact on the town. I'd also encourage you to consider the financial impact of open space and putting a conservation easement on the property, which would have no cost to the town and would, if the town negotiated with groups like the Parks Association and the Land Trust, it could be cash to the town with no expense, where a lot of the other development options would have significant expense. Particularly if you focus on residential development, the numbers will play out that the tax revenue from a residential development will be far less than the expenses to the town when you consider the school costs and also the other support costs the town would have to provide to a residential development.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Adrian Michi Smith, 17 Ansonia Road. I came here more to listen. I wasn't going to talk, but that rarely happens that I don't talk. So I apologize for coming in late, but I heard what Kathy was saying about the birds. And I unfortunately missed that bird walk. However, my husband and I walk on the country club quite often, and I happen to have the Merlin app on my bird app on my phone, which is provided by the Cornell Ornithology Lab. And it's just amazing the number of things that show up over there. It's just amazing. So I would, if anybody is into that sort of thing, I would suggest that you take a walk over there with your apps and listen to all the different types of birds that we have over there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Bob Hill, 68 Acorn Hill Road. Just a couple comments here. I'm still looking to get an answer as to when the EV chargers, when people are going to start paying for that. So I'm not against electric charging stations. I just am not in favor that I should have to pay for someone else's charging of their vehicle. In that way, I'm halfway there. I drive hybrid, so I guess I'm halfway there in that process. So it'd be nice to get an answer on that. And kind of curious with Massaro, I guess two things on that: who's going to be paying the electric bill over there, and based on that particular site when it was taken over by the town, I think there's farming and recreational use that can be done, and I'm wondering if the commercial use of the EV charger is considered a commercial use and whether that's actually permitted or not. I did at the preliminary budget meeting and also at the town meeting, I made some inquiry about the library, and it was really wasn't really picking on the library. It was really more trying to create a focus on how we count and how we look at things. And I had mentioned that it seemed that based on the numbers, it was 9.2 to 9.64 people working every hour the library is open. And the director got up and says, geez, there's 3 people downstairs and 2 upstairs. I said, that's an issue. Really didn't get an answer for that. When I came back at the town meeting, I asked him, it was as if the comments that I made wasn't even listened to. And I'm just going to make a suggestion here, and because obviously, I guess the only way I'm going to get the real information there is I guess I'll have to make a freedom of information request. And I don't really think it has to be that way because I know the data is available and it would be nice to get that data. And I think some of the angst that sometimes happens and where people get a little bit animated with their comments, and like we saw at the town meeting where one person got up and actually made some accusations that were pretty out there, is a really nice process. I think that I would suggest is, I know you're not going to respond to me here tonight, you probably won't. I know once in a while when someone comes up and makes an egregious comment at the end of public comment, sometimes a response comes back because it's like, well, we can't leave that on the record, which is a good thing to do. I would suggest a practice that at the following Board of Selectmen meeting, before public comment, you actually address the questions that came up that need to be addressed or answered. Because otherwise you just leave it languishing out there and it just makes people angry. And it just, I just think good government, okay? So, good to see you. Thanks so much. Thanks for letting me make these comments.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okey doke. Now we'll move on to the public hearing, which, 6 o'clock, it's okay. All right. In accordance with Section 12-632 of the Connecticut General Statutes, the R.E. Van Nostrand Neighborhood Assistance Act, I now call this public hearing to order to receive comments on the applications received for the 2023 Neighborhood Assistance Act. The legal notice was published in the May 26, 2023 edition of the Woodbridge Town News. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the legal notice?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Okay,
assuming I didn't make the motion.
okay. Any comments
Assign
on
this
that?
properly.
All in favor? Waive the reading of the, thank you. Okay, so that is unanimous. Are there any comments from the public present regarding the applications from the MD Teen Center doing business at 10 Selden Street, and Energy Efficiency Project, $24,980. Second one, Cure Rare Diseases Incorporated, advancing treatments for rare diseases, $150,000. And the Jewish Federation. Would you like me to start again with the whole thing, or?
No, I don't have to start again, but if maybe the microphone would help.
Is that better? Can everyone hear me in the back there? Marty? Okay.
I'm getting deaf, but I can start here.
Okay. Cure Rare Diseases Incorporated, $150,000, and the Jewish Federation of Greater New Haven, 360 Amity Road, for energy equipment restoration, $150,000. Following any public comments, I have to ask the clerk if she received any additional written comments. First, is there anyone from the public commenting on any of these? Seems not. Have you received any written or verbal? You have not, okay. So then I now declare this public hearing closed. I will now make the following motion. I move to accept the following applications for the 2023. David, I gotta go get a mask. You're killing me here.
I'm changing over here.
I cannot get sick. I'm immunocompromised. I don't know. I don't want you to retire, but maybe move over in that corner or something. Would that be?
I was gonna move to that corner. It's my corner.
I know. Oh,
That doesn't always help.
I know. I move to accept the following applications for the 2023 Neighborhood Assistance Act and forward them to the Department of Revenue Services for processing. Amity Teen Center, $24,980. Cure Rare Disease Incorporated, $150,000. And the Jewish Federation of Greater New Haven, 360 Amity Road, $150,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Any comments on any of these? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Did I do that right, Jerry? It's all set? Okay, got that under control. Now we're back to item 11, correct? Okay.
Other 11.
I hope you have all received this. We sent this out last week so that everybody had a chance to look it over. Request for proposals for the former Country Club of Woodbridge Master Plan. This is a public document, anyone can see it. Has a history above the town. The people that worked on it were me, David Vogel, and Paul Kuriakos, and Tony Genovese from staff developed this. And it took a long time. It took us a few months, and we have come up with the following document. Rather than read the entire thing, which is quite long, you've all had a chance to read it. Does anyone have any comments or changes before we go forward?
I just had one
for
on
it.
page 2, under history. It talks about the town purchased the former country club for $7 million in 2009 at a special town meeting. I believe it was the annual town meeting,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yep.
That's it.
Legal bullseye
catch.
there.
That's all
Okay.
I
That's a good
got. I
catch.
remember the
Yeah.
meeting well.
Okay, so we'll make that change. Anyone have anything else? Okay. So would anyone else other than me like to make a motion?
Got David making the motion.
Okay, thank you, David.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Terrific.
All right. Are we actually right up to personnel now? Or is there an update? Oh, you're gonna give us an update on security plans.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This mainly involves the,
I kinda know this, so I'm gonna go get a mask, if that's okay.
okay.
No offense, I just,
This involves the removal of the buildings on the property. So there are currently 9 buildings on the property, and the Public Works staff has removed 3 of them during staff time with no expense other than our existing equipment. And that's the outdoor bathroom, the pool filter shed, and the tennis shed. So those have been removed. In order to remove the remaining accessory buildings, which includes the halfway house, the irrigation shed, the maintenance garage, the golf cart storage shed, and the swimmer's bathhouse, there are some disposal costs, fencing, some equipment rental involved with that. And that's just an estimate of overtime. It could be less if we can do some of this during town time, depending on their work schedule and the timeline. So the immediate, for your July meeting, I would put together costs for the top 3 items: disposal, fencing, and equipment rental. Additionally, we've had a environmental consultant look at the halfway house, and so we're putting together a proposal for that, should there be any additional disposal costs related to that facility.
Why are we doing this?
That's the
Abundance
first
of
part.
caution.
This involves all the questions that were
Yeah.
asked at the last meeting.
Right.
So, if there's an interest in that, I can certainly put that together for your next meeting. The remainder is, the last part of this is consulting services for the main clubhouse. And that includes inspection of hazardous materials, utility assessment, site demolition plans, permitting, construction documents for demolition, stormwater pollution prevention plan, some bidding assistance, and finally construction administration, which would be oversight during demolition. So if you were to move forward with that, that's roughly the cost for those services.
So
if
you
you're-
need from us tonight would be
Well, if-
helpful.
It would be helpful for tonight is, in the immediate term, would be to allow me to give me the sort of the consensus to go forward and get pricing, get funding for the cost to remove the accessory buildings. That's really the immediate
I think that that's a good idea.
need.
Please identify the cost.
And then I could come up with some funding requests for next meeting
Okay,
to move forward with removal of the accessory buildings.
okay.
The main clubhouse is, while it's a topic for discussion, we're more concerned with the accessory buildings at this point.
Right. So I will
So-
make a motion that we direct,
You can
need a
just-
motion or is it
No,
consensus?
just a consensus. If you
Everybody okay with that?
if
you
you
have
want
an
me to move
objection
forward
to
with
it?
that, I can do that.
When these were discussed, it didn't seem to me there were 9 buildings involved. There were 2 or 3 buildings involved.
Well, those are the ones that we removed. What do you mean involved in terms of,
Well, one had a fire,
right,
and the other one was a potential fire hazard.
right? Fire was in one of the, was in the golf cart storage shed.
Right. What is the need to take down the irrigation shed? What's the hazard?
These are
there?
just buildings that are basically becoming dilapidated.
Is that shed empty?
No, there's some pumps in there.
There's pumps in there.
Yeah, so we removed the pumps.
You know, I've been saying all along, we've been getting rid of infrastructure at that club. You know, kind of death by 1,000 cuts, and this is another one. You know, and I don't know. It seems to me those things still have some value.
We've heard from, we'll hear about it further in our security update in executive session. But as you know, there's been a lot of problems over there because these buildings are not, no one's there. And building maintenance, I think, is having a lot of concerns about, you know, having them just sitting there with people going in, what are we gonna save them for at this point? all we're gonna do is just get an estimate. We haven't decided to take them all down, but this is to come to consensus to get the cost for doing this.
The first step.
Yeah.
Is the irrigation shed the one that's by the lake? Because that's also been broken into and graffitied, if you've been by it recently, so. These are all sort of attractive nuisance
Right.
type
Right.
items at this point.
Correct.
I thought we were gonna increase security at the club.
We'll have to talk about that in executive session. I have an update on all of that. Tony has more too for that. Can't talk about it here.
No, I'm not, wanna
Right.
talk about it.
We are
here,
gonna
but-
talk about it.
But the idea that I have is that increasing security would reduce the problem with possible vandalism at that club. That's my point.
Okay. So is the consensus of the board at this moment to at least ask Tony to get pricing on taking down the other existing accessory
I
buildings?
think it would help inform our decision-making, so
Okay.
getting the pricing makes it easier to have a concrete discussion about what
Okay.
might come next, or not.
Okay. Everybody okay with just getting some data?
Yeah,
Okay,
data sounds fine.
right.
To Sheila's point, I think perhaps maybe even we should have a board walkthrough at some point.
A board what?
Walk
Good
through.
idea.
To
Yeah,
go to the
okay, I didn't
country
hear it. I
club.
might have been out of the room when she
Well,
said that. Okay.
We can
What?
get
I didn't hear
pictures
her say
too.
that.
I mean, I have a whole
Good.
bunch.
Okay, all right.
Good.
But yeah,
Okay,
for those who don't want to walk around
Yeah.
in the country club, Beth, I'm thinking of you especially.
okay.
Well, it seems to me that we should know what we're talking about. We should
Yeah,
investigate
it's not a bad
what we're
idea.
talking about,
Okay.
so we have
We can make that
an
happen.
informed decision.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
So go ahead and have at that part of it. I guess
Okay.
that's the consensus to get that data for us. Okay. Thank you. That's it for update on.
That's it.
Okay, for this point, okay. Item 12 on the agenda is the Personnel Committee report regarding library staffing. The Personnel Committee, consisting of me, Paul Kiriakos, and David Lober, met on June 5th, and it was the unanimous vote to recommend to the Board of Selectmen, this is us tonight, that pursuant to the recommendation of the Library Commission, Jennifer Sullivan be offered the position of Assistant Library Director, an additional $5,000 per year, funded from the library budget, effective June 15th, 2023. David, do you have anything to add on that?
Nope.
Paul's not here. Okay, anyone have any questions?
Nope.
Okay,
There's another individual, you're gonna mention her?
I could, sure. Sorry.
It's all right.
Committee also, I was gonna do them, I guess, I went out of turn.
Okay.
Wait, well,
You can do them both if you want.
I can do them both at the same time,
Yep.
okay.
Right.
Also, the committee voted unanimously to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that pursuant to the recommendation of the Library Commission, Donna Farina be offered the position of Adult Services Librarian at the rate of $28 an hour, and that was also unanimous. We can vote on them together, I guess. Anyone have any comments or questions on these? All in favor?
Hi.
Okay, thank you. Item 13 on the agenda is the consent agenda.
So, before we make the motion, can I pull, I did not receive in my packet, and I know we had a little issue with the packet, and I apologize, I didn't notice until today, I didn't get the last item. And I also didn't get so item G, the
Under which?
coop up, so under consent agenda 13G, I didn't receive it. But also the Racebrook track piece, I didn't receive in my packet. I don't know if you all got it in your packet, maybe it was just mine. I don't know.
Machine messed up and I tried to get them all
Oh,
straightened.
yeah, no, completely understand, Jerry. You were wrestling to get things done on Friday. And I should have seen it sooner, but I did not, so I apologize for that. But I wonder if we could just pull that,
Is there a time?
I think
Thing.
for the Racebrook track, there is a time.
and I actually saw the presentation to conservation, so I'm actually okay with that one. It's just I didn't get a chance to read that last item G. So if I could just pull item G from our packet and
Okay.
maybe table that till the next meeting.
We can do that. We can do it.
Okay.
It's a quarterly update. We can just put it in next month's
Yeah.
packet for you guys to
Yeah,
read.
I'd like to read
I
it.
can read you the memo if you'd like me to. No one got the Piscatelli research project. It's a memo actually from the Woodbridge Conservation Commission.
Right, they're
which you
recommending,
alluded
right?
to.
Yeah.
We heard from Philip Piscatelli regarding his proposal to do a research project regarding the effect of invasives on the growth of trees at the Racebrook Tract. This is from Tim Austin, by the way, to us. As a result of action taken at the meeting, the commission recommends to the Board of Selectmen that the town authorize Philip to conduct this research. He's a graduate student at the University of New Haven studying environmental science. Specifically, his project is to conduct research on the impact of the invasive vine, Oriental bittersweet, on tree growth. Oriental bittersweet is an invasive vine from Asia, and he goes on about what that is all about. His research would involve collecting a small core from the trees with an incremental borer, which is the industry standard collection method. It will not harm the trees, but allows researchers to determine tree age and growth rate. Philip relayed to us, this is to the Conservation Commission, that the Orange Conservation Commission has already given him permission to do this research in the part of the Racing Tract that is in Orange. I guess he's looking for the part that's in Woodbridge. So if anyone has any questions, I can't answer them, but hopefully this isn't an issue. Anyone have any problems with authorizing this? Okay, I'll make a motion that, well, actually, it's part of this packet, so I will make a motion that we approve the consent agenda minus item G, which is the quarterly update from CUPOP, and that will go out in next month's packet. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 14, I have an apology to make. I added this to the agenda, but this is
Can we go
related to
back?
the,
As part of the
what did I forget?
The minutes.
They're in the, we
all
voted to
consent.
approve them. Did you have anything you wanted to say about them?
Well, I didn't know what I was voting for. I just had a question on the minutes.
Sure,
For
sure.
Tony. What, on page,
Which date?
May 10th.
Okay, Jerry's got them.
I got it. Okay. May 10th. So, there's a statement in the minutes here that says, this is Tony. So-
Wait a minute, what page?
I'm sorry, page 3,
Oh, thank you.
starting with the Amity Teen Center is on the top there. So I just want a clarification. Tony said that the current program of elderly tax abatement costs the town $150,000. Is that correct? So
Yeah, it changes each year. Last year was 148.
okay. Does the state not reimburse the town?
No, not for the local program. That's the local program we're referring to. do not get
Are you
reimbursed.
correcting the minutes, David, or, because that's,
Well, I just want to know if that statement is actually factual. Because the state does reimburse.
The state does not
town.
reimburse us for our local elderly program. It's an option that we have, and that we adjust the mill rate to account for the fact that we have that elderly program. So every year in the budget process.
But the elderly program is mandated by the state, and they,
There's two programs. There's a
Okay.
state elderly program,
Right.
and there's a town option. This one is the town option that I'm referring to here.
how is that different from the state program?
Because the state program is a very restrictive program, the income levels are very low.
Right,
Our town option has the income levels higher.
slightly higher, yeah.
And it's based off the state program.
Right.
And therefore is a local option only.
But the state will reimburse you up to their circuit breaker level.
That's for their local program.
So this is what.
We don't get the circuit breaker
You don't get
anymore.
any of it?
Certain communities where the circuit breaker was eliminated.
By the state? Is that right, Jerry?
What Tony said it, I think it's right.
I don't know.
but
but
the
I-
minutes are correct,
We used to get the circuit breaker. that
right?
was
Okay.
A few years ago.
We can
But the
talk
minutes,
about-
this one's referring to the
I understand what you're saying.
the
but
local option.
Because it's greater, well, my reading of the law was different. That's why I'm taking
Okay.
exception to that.
But what he said is what he said.
Okay,
The
I mean,
minutes
what
are
he said was
correct.
what he said. I just wanted to make sure that.
And that part's correct.
I wanted to make sure that the calculation was only looking at the expense side and not at the revenue side. When you look at what the cost to the town, and apparently that's what you're looking at.
Well, there is no
There
revenue
is
for
no
that
revenue,
program.
he said.
Can we talk about this under item?
Yeah. I'm done.
That's okay, we can talk about it under item 15, because we have
That's
that on
fine.
the agenda.
That's fine.
The minutes are correct, right? You're not gonna not vote?
Apparently they are correct.
Yeah, okay, so we got that, okay. Thank you. I had added on the agenda the appointments of Government Access Television Commission. We're down a few. Received one very late when I came back from work this afternoon. Did not have time to review it, and I think, if possible, I'd like to postpone it because we may have a few others and we can perhaps do them all together. Yep.
I also saw that on the agenda and couldn't find it anywhere on the email, the resumes that supposedly
Right.
were attendant to that. But I did make sure that our nominee for the GATV resume was transmitted to,
Yeah, we got it late this afternoon. I just.
well,
got
I
it,
did,
so-
I got half of this
It's
agenda
okay.
late this
It's okay.
afternoon.
What I'm gonna say is
All
that
right,
we'll
so
hopefully have.
I'm objecting to not having it on the agenda. You asked if anybody objected, I object. It's on the agenda. I sent one in. I'd like to have it put it on.
Okay,
You could take a vote to modify the agenda.
and take it off?
Take it
So,
off.
so I'd like to actually make a motion that we table consideration of this item because I'm very interested in hearing more from the Government Access Television Commission itself. I did watch their last meeting, and they're trying to understand what the options are going forward now that we're going to be having a retirement. And I want to make sure that the Board of Selectmen kind of understands the context in which we would be appointing people onto the commission or potentially exploring other options for how the Government Access Television Commission can, or the work can continue to be done. So I wondered if we could potentially table this whole piece until next month so that we could perhaps invite Government Access to come and report to us.
Okay, that's a good
Just
idea.
a thought.
They are very they are down to almost no one on their
Right,
commission anymore.
exactly.
That's right.
So I don't know it's gonna be
I
a
guess the
single
chair.
individual reporting.
Yeah.
You can have the chair.
And we do have an obligation to keep the people on the commissions because they're in our charter. They are in our ordinances. And this is on the agenda. There is a nominee that I'm willing to make. I haven't seen the other resumes because there was a lot of stuff that never came out until today, which I was working all day and did not have time to get to. So I'm just saying the motion to table, which Jerry doesn't know, but does take precedence in this. If you want to take action on the motion to table, that's fine. But if we're going to discuss that, we can discuss the motion to table if it has a second.
I'll second it. Further discussion?
Just a
Yeah,
thought.
I don't see why we need to table this discussion for that reason, because the commission is so understaffed right now that we ought to put people on it. That's what we're here to do. That's in the ordinance. And we have a nominee, we should take action on it. That's my point.
Okay, thank you. I'll take action. All in favor of tabling the motion, say aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the
Do you know
elderly.
what the motion to table is? It just a simple majority?
Yes.
I believe it's a simple majority, David.
I don't have my Robert's rules with me, so I don't know.
The other thing they could do, if you didn't table it, you could put your nominee up, they can reject the nominee, and that's the end of it. I think from your point of view, it'd be much better to go to the next meeting.
Not really.
The
I mean,
table
if
is
you're gonna
already-
reject my nominee, please do.
Table is
But-
already passed. The motion to table is already passed.
Item 15 on the agenda is the elderly tax program at Dr. Lober's suggestion. And we received quite a bit of data from Dr. Lober regarding this matter. Didn't have time to read it all, David, I'm
No, I'm
sorry.
not gonna read it all. So, here's what my thinking is. As I said last month, if we could make it a little bit easier for elderly people who do not have children in the school system to stay in town a little bit longer, we would stabilize the roles of the school and we wouldn't have that expense to the town. Now, what I'm proposing is a freeze of the property tax for people when they reach 65 after they've been living in the town for X number of years. It could be 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Some town has 20 years. I mean, that would be open for discussion. So typically what a freeze does is it defers payment of any taxes above that freeze level. And in some municipalities, they put a lien on the property. So over the course of time, until that property is sold, that debt would accumulate, and when the property would be sold, that lien would be satisfied. It would be revenue neutral for the town. And I think it would save money, because ultimately you're going to get that money. You're not losing the money.
By revenue neutral, you mean it's not gonna cost
What I mean is it's not gonna cost the
But there
town.
will be no income from
What's
those
that now?
taxes. There won't be tax money coming in.
Well,
It's
you're only
frozen.
looking,
So how do you consider that revenue
okay,
neutral?
so there are
Debt.
there are two parts to a budget. There's the revenue side and there's the
Yeah.
expense side. Typically, you personally are only looking at the revenue side. You never acknowledge the expense side. And that's part of the equation, as Tony will tell you. So if you can keep the expense side down and keep the revenue flat for this segment of the population, you're really going to be making money in the end.
You have some
And
thoughts, Tony, on this,
that would be my proposal. Now
what it costs us every year or lately, or how has it been?
Well, one thing I will comment on, as you know, we do have an existing ordinance
Right.
in place.
you have, yeah.
Yeah, for
You
this
have
purpose.
you have an abatement ordinance.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is slightly more generous with the state. Which I'm surprised that the state doesn't reimburse you for part of that.
They do not.
Well, I don't know, I think they should.
It would be nice.
I think they should, I think they're obligated to, and I think you have to apply to the state for that.
It'd be
I
lovely
think.
if they pay for the education costs.
What's that?
They should pay for the education costs too.
Yeah,
They
give us
don't.
fully fund ECS, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be nice.
Well, that's not germane to this discussion. What we're talking about here is the elderly tax relief program.
Dave, can I ask you a question? Every year that your program is in effect, assuming the expenses go up, which historically, I think not only Woodbridge, but every single town has gone up. We can argue whether we go up more than others or others go up more than, but they go up. Inflation is inflation for education. If they go up and you freeze 50 homes or 100 homes, somebody's gonna have to pay that. And isn't that a tax increase to everyone else who is not 65, who's taking advantage of the program?
Yes.
Well, there'll be a tax increase to the people on the freeze, they just won't be paying it that year. They'll pay it
No,
when the
no,
house is sold.
I'm talking, the people on the freeze get a tax benefit, they're fine. The people who don't get the freeze, under 65,
Yep.
doesn't their taxes go up? And isn't that a tax increase on those
Because we
people?
still have to pay the same amount of
Somebody's gotta
bills.
pay the
You're not,
expenses.
what I heard him say was that the portion of tax that was being lowered was being recovered in a lien on the property when it eventually sold. Was that what you were saying?
Exactly.
Yeah, and that could be 20, 25, somebody could live to 100, or 10 homes, can people go to 100.
So-
Those people who are
However-
paying that short-term increase are paying a tax increase.
Fine.
They might not even be around.
Let me just explain to you how math works. Some people, if a program is existing, some people will always be at the end of the program, selling their homes and paying back the accumulated lien. And so over time, you start to recognize a significant revenue stream from it. And it will be tax neutral because of that. It won't be tax neutral in the first year any more than, any of the government programs that do rebates or any kind of entitlement program ever works out. It always works out over time.
So let
So
me give you a lesson in math. During the first year of the program, and I understand what David's saying, and yes, you could fashion it to get it back whenever that person sells a house. That could be 5 years, 2 years, 1 year. 30. During that first year, there
You're
will
right.
be a loss, an income loss because of those abatements of $50,000.
Yes,
Who is gonna pay that
Well,
$50,000, assuming the budget
you're right.
goes up regularly?
you're right.
So I taught you something in math. That's a
No, you didn't
tax
teach me
increase.
anything in math,
That's
Jerry.
a tax
I'm
increase.
absolutely certain that that is not something you're qualified to do.
But that's a tax increase on those people for that first year.
Not if nobody comes in with school children and buys that house.
Not if no one comes in.
If that individual stays in town because they get a tax deferment because of a freeze, they're not selling their house, and that person who's buying that house with the 3 children that he's putting in the school system does not come in and cost the town that income.
We don't know how they're gonna sell a house or not gonna sell a house. They could sell a house the
Well,
next
they
year.
will sell the house eventually.
But I'm talking about the short-term tax increase to people who are not getting that benefit, who have to make up for the shortfall in the first year. I'm just talking the first year. There's gonna be a second year shortfall and the third. Yes, at some point in time, people are gonna start selling those homes and it comes back. But the person who has to, that person could be a person living on a $75,000 annual income, they're gonna have to pay a little bit more money, not because you want to improve the school system, not because you want to do something for the elderly for recreation, because you're giving a benefit to people 65 and older, who, by the way, might not even need it because their income could be
Well,
overcharged.
they don't have to take it if they don't need it. I mean, there are people
Well,
who
most
would want to
people
put a
take-
lien on their
most
house.
people, we're talking hypothetical, most
Right,
people
we're
are
not
gonna
talking
take it.
about
They're
hypothetical.
gonna get a bill with a credit of $150, they're not gonna come and say, I wanna pay it.
We
They're gonna
have-
take that credit.
Could I
Yeah.
intervene here for 1 second? I think, first of all, we do have an ordinance, as you mentioned, Sheila, that handles this.
Tony
But
mentioned.
my understanding is that the income level to qualify for this is quite low, or is that true, Tony?
I wouldn't say it's quite low, but
All
it's
right.
based off the state program, so
Yeah.
it's 1.5, I think it's
State
1.5
program, I
times the
think,
state
is
program.
$32,000 for a married couple.
Yeah, so it's based off of that, so it's, I don't know if it's 1.5 or 2 times, I don't remember, but it's based off the state program.
So maybe it would be worthwhile, rather than just completely eliminating, having no restrictions no matter what your income is, because, just doing something like that, we shouldn't consider a proposal with any, just no income restrictions. But what we could do is ask the ordinance committee to revisit this and re-examine the existing ordinance and make it more favorable to certain
On-
seniors.
On the data, on that big packet that I sent you with all the towns, every town does it differently. Some towns have $30,000, $35,000
Right.
income limits. Some towns have $75,000, $80,000, $100,000.
So maybe we could make it a little bit more, as I understand it, it hasn't cost us that, the amount it's cost us over the last few years has gone down.
It has, a little,
Correct.
yeah.
So maybe we could make it a little more, we could have the ordinance committee take a look at this and see if they can make it more favorable to certain
I think
seniors.
philosophically, it's a good idea. And I really don't think it's gonna cost the town money. In the long run, it's gonna save the town money. Because it'll keep, my street turned over.
Yeah.
And every house has 2 or 3 children in the school system, every house. I have a couple of people who are hanging on. I got a 96-year-old on the corner. And I've got, one other very elderly family, but basically every house on my street has turned over with the last 5 or 6 years.
Well, what's the consensus of the board on this one?
So I think if we take it up at ordinance, we could examine where we are, maybe get some refreshed data from the state, because what I was reading through seemed a little dated, so perhaps there's changes. Maybe there's a way to get reimbursement, but Tony's indicating that they took us off the reimbursement, so let's get some updates in the
I'm
ordinance.
personally not in favor of having no income restrictions. I just don't think that's right. If you can afford it, you should pay your taxes, But maybe we could change those. I know we agree to disagree on that one.
No, we have 109 towns in this state
Okay.
that have this program, or
All
a
right.
program similar to it.
So
Right,
okay.
I mean, though I haven't really been invested in a plan for such a program, I just read what was offered up. And as being a mathematically revenue neutral program, we shouldn't reject it. we should sort of dig into the data, I think, because, you know, there are lots of things out there that keep seniors in place, reverse mortgages. I mean, there are lots of kinds of things that make it easier for people not to move when they're looking at wanting to move to Florida because there's no tax.
Yeah.
And what we do know is that it's been tried to be sold to us in this town on many occasions that we need more options for seniors to stay in the town because we like that idea. I agree with the idea that we like that idea. I don't know that there's a wholesale, I don't know what the data is on the number of seniors leaving the
Probably
town.
not gonna surprise you when I say this. I also think it's important that we encourage families to move too.
No doubt,
You know, I just,
no
and I-
no doubt, but the people who've invested their
I don't
lives.
wanna
Family-
become an old town.
Family,
I'm one of them.
families will move in because people don't live forever and they don't stay in their homes forever, you know. So there is a natural turnover.
And I think the point is that the objection of, well, this year we're gonna have a shortfall, does need to consider the fact that when somebody moves out of a larger home, because of, they don't need the home and it's costing them more and more and more on taxes. And maybe there is an income issue, but if it was their choice to stay there in their home because they've lived there all their lives and they like it, it might be very nice to recognize that income to the town at a later time. Meanwhile, you don't have 3 kids, $55,000 worth of tax obligation to the kids who would be going into the schools. So yes, the town might have to pay a little more to keep those people there, but they would be paying a little less for the 3 kids who aren't there going over to Amity High School. So, you know, there is a possibility that with a little bit of data, we might discover that we could meet a lot of objectives of the town with a program like this. Maybe not the one that's offered, but something.
Okay, well, to get this off the docket here, I will make a motion that we re-examine, we'll send it to the ordinance committee to re-examine the existing ordinance and make it more favorable to certain seniors. Is that okay
I'll
to
second
start?
that.
Okay.
We'll take it up at ordinance.
Yep, okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay,
Consensus.
what are we up to? Number 16?
Consensus. We agree.
I took a vote, okay. Town council's report. Jerry, you're on. Action to extend terms of appointed officials to December 31st. This is appointed officials, not elected officials, of any given year.
So I have to give you a little background. As you know, the legislature about a year ago passed a law that said any town in Connecticut must have November elections. And there was a caveat to that, as we all know. However, if a town currently had May elections at the time the statute was passed, they could retain the May elections if there was a vote, like affirmative vote of 3/4, I think 3/4 or 2/3, I think it was 3/4, a supermajority of the legislative body to stay at May elections. Board of Selectmen many months ago took that vote, and it was decided that the town of Woodbridge would go to November election in November 2023. Within that legislation was a phrase that the legislators made a mistake and said that the terms of elected officials shall end on election day. In other words, you all and every elected official in town's term were extended from June 3rd, July 1 to, according to the statute, election day. People, and I only became aware, but we became aware of this because the town attorney in Bethany said, hey, that must be a mistake because that means that you gotta have people sworn in on election day or the next day because the existing people only stay until election day. There is a statute that we were operating under that I think still applies, but there's a little complication that says the towns may elect to swear in elected officials within 70 days of the election day. The secretary, the legislation that was passed by this legislature didn't consider that 70-day, even though they really wanted to, they just didn't consider it. They passed the legislation without it. And the Secretary of State opined that
Don't get coughing now. Oh, God.
the Secretary of State gave an opinion that said, yes, this is based on the town attorney in Bethany's request. Yes, the existing elected officials' terms end on election day. So now we're faced with, at worst case scenario, we set a date of December, everybody be sworn in December of this year, which is about 6 weeks after election, which is normal for most communities in the town. They do 2 weeks, some do 2 weeks, some do a week, some do 5, some do 6. It turns out that we may not be able to get advantage of the 70-day rule. The legislature recognized they made a mistake, and they had a bill put into the legislature's past session, which passed unanimously in the House of Representatives. And as a matter of fact, our town clerk got a letter from the Secretary of State which said the bill was passed unanimously by the House of Representatives. We expect it to pass unanimously in the state Senate, and therefore you can set your 70-day election swearing-in period. It was on the what is known as a consent agenda in the Senate on the last day of the session, which was June 7th. As you probably know and probably read, they have lots of bills that are going forward on the last day. They want to end the session by 12 midnight. Even though it passed by unanimous vote in the House of Representatives, and even though there was no objection to it in the Senate, it never got called. 12 o'clock came. Some of our representatives in the legislature realized at 11:55 that it wasn't going to get called, so it didn't pass. So right now we're in the situation that it could be we may need to swear everyone in the morning after the election, which is not great for transition, but it was a stupid oversight by the legislature. They had a chance to fix it. They fixed it only 50% of the session. The other 50% is out there. So,
Anybody knows what baseball meeting is? Probably maybe the center building. This is the town hall. No, that's okay. All right, well, good luck. I hope you find it.
Drive room 16.
Excuse me.
So that's where we are on elected officials. Hopefully we can, the Secretary of State is still trying to figure out a fix. I'm supposed to meet with the Bethany town attorney, who's also the town attorney in Orange, to have a conversation with the Secretary of State General Counsel to see if we can get some kind of fix. People in the legislature want a fix. They may be able to figure something out. One little note, if there is a special session, then they can fix it in the special session. But the special session has to happen within a certain number of weeks from the ending of the general day. There is some rumor that there's a possibility, small, but a possibility that they may need to go back in special session to fix 1 or 2 bills. They don't care about ours, but there's some more important bill that they, so then we can ride coattail onto those bills. So right now, it looks like there's a very good chance, or there's a good chance, that it can't be fixed. And come the next morning after election, a new group of elected officials will take office. If we can get a fix, then we still go back to the 70-day rule, and the December date that you originally set would be in effect. So that's where we stand on elected officials. Yes.
And so the state rule that they passed would now preempt all town charters? Is that?
Yes. The state home rule does not apply to the setting of elections, the dates of elections. That is preempted by
state?
By the state. So this rule,
Did this now preempt every town that normally was
No, it's
just our 4 towns?
just the 4 towns, yeah.
So
Right.
they cared enough to make sure that we had to change, but they don't care enough to make it right.
They really made a mistake, and the stupidity of it all, they had the opportunity to change it. They wanted to change it. There was no one objecting against it. It just got lost in the confusion and the mess that is generally acceptable, generally happens at the end of the session.
It's not broken, but.
So it is where it is, we'll have to face it one way or another. It turns out to be a very, I think this is a mess. What happens if there's a challenge to the election and everybody, the new people take office on the next morning, but somebody goes to court to challenge you? It could be very confusing, to say the least.
Even if there's no challenge and there's just a count delay.
Right.
Yeah, that's the other. Well, I think when they say election day, I think if you get sworn in the morning after, I don't think anything happens between 12 midnight and 9 o'clock the next morning, so we can count on the next morning, unless we get it fixed. So that's the elected officials. I just wanted everyone to know that that's out there. With regard to appointed officials, we passed an ordinance, as Sheila brought up to the ordinance committee, to have all appointed people on boards and commissions term be extended to December. That ordinance was passed, we had a public hearing, no one showed up, it was passed. Our charter actually says that any appointed board, commission, or appointed official who serves until the term and until a successor is appointed. So everybody, if you guys don't appoint, say we were under the old system and you didn't appoint somebody on July 1st to Planning and Zoning Commission, Conservation, the existing members would hold over until you actually appointed somebody in their place. And that's true in the state statutes, the state members of boards and commissions. So we've taken care of the appointed members of boards and commissions, the appointed officials, the town clerk, Jerry sent me a list, town clerk, tax assessor.
Not the tax assessor.
Not the tax collector.
Tax collector.
And a number of others that I'll read to you in a second. Those are not appointed boards and commissions. The ordinance took care of boards and commissions. All of those people's terms keep going until successors are appointed. So everybody is protected. In other words, the election happens in November. New people take over. Their terms now end July 1 under the old system. But they're going to stay in office because they serve, unless you guys want to appoint a successor at some point in time, they serve until the successor is appointed. I was proposing that the Board of Selectmen, and we can do this tonight or we can do it in a special meeting before the end of the year, do what we did with the appointed boards and commissions and just say all appointed officials' terms will go until December 31st. Now, and that will give the new board and the new first selectman, whoever he or she, well, whoever he may be, I guess now, will be in office for approximately 5 or 6 weeks
Not me.
before the new people that take over. That'll give them 5 or 6 weeks to, if it's a whole new group, they'll have 5 or 6 weeks to get people in line, get new boards and commissions, which is probably a good thing, in the long term. My proposal to the board, and you don't have to do it tonight if you don't want to, is that we pass a motion that extends appointed officials, town clerk, tax assessor. Jerry, do you have that list? I have it right here.
I have it, Jerry, if you want me to read it.
Yeah, read it.
Sure, administrative officer.
No, Tony has a 4-year term. He goes
Okay.
until 2025. So he's
Okay, so it's just people that end up in 2023?
Yeah.
No, because it would be anyone, because Tony's appointment, as it sits on the books now,
Yeah.
is up the 30th of June, 2025.
Yeah, so he doesn't
So-
need, he doesn't need to be extended. He
No.
goes until 2025 anyway.
Yes, but not till December 31st.
Yeah, so you'd move it to December 31st of each successive year.
Right, of any given year.
Right, because we never want to have terms starting in July.
No.
We've moved.
No more,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
All right.
So go ahead with the list.
Okay, well,
I don't know.
I'll take it.
What if they don't ever pass it? Maybe we're gonna go back to July.
Too late
I
for
have
that,
him
right?
for 2025.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So building official 2024, 4-year term. Enforcement officer, 2-year term to 2023, there's one, right? Census taker, 2 years, 2023. Citation hearing officers, 2023. Registrar of vital statistics, town clerk people, right? 2023, deputies and assistants, 2023, tax collector, 2023. Town clerk, four-year appointment by BOS is up 2023. Assistant town clerks, four-year appointment, recommended by town clerk, ratified by BOS, it doesn't say the year. Town council, two-year appointment to 2023. Treasurer, two-year appointment 2023. Assistant treasurer, 2023. And tree wardens, two-year appointment to 2023. That's the
So again,
list.
all those people stay in office until their successor is appointed. So this motion is just sort of extra surplus, so the board recognizes that they're gonna be in there until that time.
Well, I'd be happy to make that motion unless somebody has an objection. That these people are to stay into office till
It's the understanding.
December 31st,
that
2023.
It's the understanding that the town charter allows for people to stay in their positions until successors are appointed in their place.
Okay.
And the Board of Selectmen hereby acknowledges that and extends those terms until December 31st, 2023.
Right, okay. Okay. Second, anybody?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So that's that. Okay, lastly, I think we did everything? Have I missed anything? No, we have to do a second executive session.
Oh, we do?
Right, yep,
Oh, we do.
just,
Thought we were out of here.
What was that?
Numbskulls that mess it up, fix it.
okay, last item on the agenda, I make a motion that we go into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 1-200-6C, to discuss security at the former Country Club of Woodbridge, inviting in Jerry Weiner and Tony Genovese. And, is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And I don't think there will be any
No,
action
no
probably,
action,
so
no.
if you guys wanna go